Sarah and I just read the book The Will to Change by Bell Hooks. She wrote like masculinity in the text. And I thought that could be a good starting point to discuss what masculinity is and in what ways do you wear a mask. When I was a kid, and she writes about this in the book, like you kind of get indoctrinated into whatever type of masculinity that might be in your community, in your household, in your friend group. From a young age, you're bullied if you show emotions. And then you start to piece together this mask of what you can express in order to not get bullied or to not get made fun of. And there's probably a similar thing happening to women as well. Bell Hooks talks about that and how with men it's much more damaging because you're literally just shutting down such a crucial part of being human and such a fundamental part of being mentally well. Mm-hmm. Like if you just are emotionally crippled from a very young age, you're going to have lots of problems later in life. I think another part of the mask is to be competitive. Even if you don't feel competitive inside, you have to show to other boys in your school, let's say, or in your community that you're extremely competitive and that you want to win. So yeah, anyways, over time you start to develop your mask. It gets to the point where you're an adult having to have emotional communication skills with your partner, let's say. And if you are training your whole life to not show emotions and to always try to be better than the people around you, then relationships are not going to work out at all. Mm-hmm. I think that's kind of what I see the mask as being. Do you have any ideas about like maybe the mask I wear or the mask that you've seen men wear?
No, I think you covered it pretty well. I think it's important to note that it's more than just other men that are enforcing the mask. Like sometimes it could be women in men's lives. Mm-hmm. Like you mentioned that like in a partnership it can be really hard for men to show their emotions, but sometimes even when they do show their emotions in a healthy way, it can really turn their partner off because they're like, oh my god, men aren't supposed to be like that. So that just makes that man slam their mask back up.
She mentioned that a lot throughout the book. A lot of times men will try to show emotions and will try to open up, but then they immediately get like closed down by their partners. Just showing love to people around you, trying to do selfless acts every day. Like making a point to try to do something selfless for another person every day will get you more accustomed to not thinking in that hierarchical mindset, to not have every interaction being a competition or a way to get something out of somebody else.
Yeah, that's a great point. Because part of the difficulty in removing the mask is that you're immediately punished by society once you do as a man, because it's so taboo to like show emotions. So until somebody starts and fosters an environment where men can do that, it's just going to be very hard for men to do that. And so I guess what Bell Hooks was saying is that it kind of has to start with you. Like obviously you can only control your own actions. You have to like, I guess in a way, sacrifice some things and kind of take that punishment until you've like created that space for yourself and other men to exist in without the mask.
Bell Hooks talked about people who went to Alcoholics Anonymous. They learned how to kind of take the mask off and express themselves. And it was like this hard thing for all these men to, over the course of weeks, like talk about their feelings about addiction. And once they finally got there, they said they were like so thrilled that they were able to have these meaningful conversations. But then when they exit and go back to the workforce, they immediately don't have an outlet. Like they can't tell any of their friends about this stuff. They can't express it to their wives in many cases. So it's like you have this small space where they finally feel free, and then once they leave Alcoholics Anonymous, it's immediately like mask on. You can't do that anymore.
I know, and I'm sure that contributes to like falling back into
alcoholism. Addiction. Yeah. So like doing selfless things. She also mentioned like make space for men's emotions, ask about men's emotions. Make sure you don't laugh at men when they try to speak about their emotions or be vulnerable. And that's already happening, I feel like generationally. The idea for these videos is to try to accelerate that process so that we can become more empathetic. inner peace comes from caring for others. I think that's a really powerful statement and like very true. It's like I think a lot of men who have the most anger and frustration inside them perhaps are the ones that like are thinking about themselves more than anyone else, which is kind of ironic. So like if you care for others, that might help you find some calmness in your own heart.
Yeah, and it probably has to go beyond being like the provider role that a lot of men strive for. Like a lot of men will be like, oh yeah, I'm compassionate, I care about other people. I make money for my wife and kids. That's obviously not really working to dismantle toxic masculinity.
That was one of the most eye-opening parts of the book for me, was when she talked about how men think about love and think about caring for others, and how the caring kind of neglects the emotional care. So like a man can feel like he's really loving and caring for his children because he provides for them, he gives them everything they need to survive and to thrive. But she says, like, you can do all those things and your kids still don't want to be around you and still don't feel loved and still have like severe mental problems growing up because they don't feel like you give them any love. The missing piece is that like you don't have the emotional skill set because maybe you grew up in a toxic household where there wasn't emotions and you didn't learn how to express yourself emotionally and to like really care for your children emotionally and think about how they're feeling. And like, yeah, this seems like it's just like men need to do more. And then I think men watching this might be like, whoa, I have to like have $1 million job and then also be a therapist. Why do I have to do so much work? I don't think it's you have to be a therapist for your kids or your partner. What you have to be is not an abuser. You have to not, manipulate and abuse your children. Like it's like a low bar for how to, it's not like you have to be over the top, being like a Dalai Lama for your children. You just need to have some level of interest for their emotional well-being. That's like really all it is, and like no abuse, because even if you have that interest and you're really great 90% of the time, if 10% of the time is screaming and throwing like fits and tantrums at your partner and your kids, then it's not, then all of that 90% is kind of worthless.
Well, a lot of it is undoing all these ideas of the necessity of masculinity in yourself so that you don't perpetuate that onto your children.
Yes. It's not like men are benefited from patriarchy in any way, really. Men are hurt from patriarchy too. She made a really interesting point about how feminism makes men sometimes believe that they have to be against feminists if they want to be on top. The real underlying fact is that patriarchy hurts both men and women. So take like feminist dismantling patriarchy will let men not have to be toxic in the workplace and be able to express their feelings and be able to not like be a cog in a machine and be torn down, physically abused at the workplace, and all these things that are really harmful for like male workers that they have to suffer through. That's all part of patriarchy.
Yeah, I really liked all the points Bell Hooks made in the book, kind of where like feminism has really failed men, where it kind of ended with like, oh, you kind of suck, you should be different. There wasn't a great body of feminist work detailing how men are hurt by patriarchy as well. A lot of feminists back in the day were just like, men are evil.
Yeah.
Which is very like one-dimensional. Bell Hooks had this great line where she said once feminism had achieved equality in the workplace or whatever, which still hasn't really been achieved, but a certain number of women got to the top, became CEOs, got like 6-figure salaries. They were just like, well, we're good.
Yeah.
Feminism is done. We did it. And what they became was men in drag, is how Bell Hooks
She said that? Oh,
yeah.
That's funny.
They just became men in drag. They were just using the patriarchy to be able to grind down men who had less wealth than them in the same way that a wealthy man would.
Yeah, the patriarchy is about power. That's what I got from this book. And feminists, even in feminist circles, there can be patriarchal, like feminist groups where they're just trying to get as much power as possible. So patriarchy isn't like a male thing inherently. It's whenever people use and like abuse others to try to get power and leverage over others.
Yeah, like it's just like a hierarchical system of exploitation where a woman could
Yes.
be enacting the same exploitation in the same system just as easily as a man. As soon as certain breakthroughs in feminism were made, then that was totally possible, and honestly, that's kind of what's happening today.
When you eliminate patriarchy, basically, do you also eliminate capitalism?
I feel like a lot of it is intertwined, and that's something that Bell Hooks brought up a lot. What was it? Her phrasing that we live in a capitalist, imperialist.
There's like 4 terms. True. Yeah. She's like, I don't know why people laugh every time I say these terms at like my
racist
lectures. Yeah.
Society. Systems of oppression kind of work together. So yeah, I think capitalism is able to operate the way it does in part because of patriarchy, which raises a lot of questions about, it just really paints how big a picture this problem is and how difficult it will be to solve.
Exactly.
Because like a huge part of why men maintain this like toxic masculinity is so that they can have success in the workplace. And that's exactly one of the points Bell Hooks made. She was talking about 2 of her ex-partners and how when they met, both of them were in their early 20s, 30s, and they were like super anti-patriarchal. And then as soon as they started rising up in their
corporate
workplace, they started to internalize these patriarchal notions again, and then their relationships just fell apart because as soon as they started thinking that way, they couldn't deal with having a partner as like outspoken and anti-patriarchal as Bell Hooks, obviously. Just super sad. But I think like economic reasons are like a huge part of the problem.
How do you eliminate patriarchy?
This, like,
while having
thinking about hierarchies, how can you do away with that in your own psyche and then still have to navigate basically an economic hierarchy? The way you get around it is
unemployment. No,
no, you're a freelancer.
So you work
for yourself, but not everyone can be a freelancer.
Yeah, true.
Oh.
Well, we'll have to discuss that in future videos. Anyways, thanks so much if anyone's watching this. And we've had a lot of fun making this little studio, at least.
I know. Do you like our set?
Yeah, a little lamp. We have the teacup. Yeah, we need to sip the tea at least once. And we'll see you guys next time. So, have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.